Hello, everybody, and welcome along to another one of these Fotospeed in conversations. It's myself and Tim, as per usual, from Fotospeed. And we're very happy to be joined by two guests today, both from the same organisation. But firstly, Evan Dawson and Dr. Michael Pritchard as well. Both of these two gentlemen work for the RPS. But I think, guys, do you just want to take a moment to introduce yourselves and explain the roles you do within the RPS? And then we're going to get into some of the latest information about the RPS, what's been changing, some of the plans for the next few years. And so if anyone watching this, if you're a member already, this is a great way to update yourself. And if you're not a member, hopefully it might be a way to understand all the benefits and exciting things that go on with the RPS and how it might be relevant to you as well. So maybe, Evan, first off, do you want to just take on the intro?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me to come and talk to you today. It's a great thrill. My name's Evan Dawson. I'm the Chief Executive of the World Photographic Society, and I've only been able to say that for about 8 months. So I still feel fairly green in the role, given that most of that time we've been in lockdown. And actually the RPS, we opened our exhibition, finally, our gallery, about a week ago. And it's been amazing to see real people coming in and looking at real photographs on real walls. And it really feels like I've only been with the organisation a week in that sense, though we've been doing an awful lot during lockdown, as we'll probably come to discuss in a moment. But my role is essentially to look after the whole of the organisation, reporting to the Board of Trustees, who are all elected by the RPS members, and to look after all of the incredible staff team that we have at the RPS, who look after all the different bits of the organisation, which we'll talk about in a moment. And it's a really exciting organisation, which is at a point of great change at the moment, which I'm looking forward to telling you about in a minute. But I'll hand over, and so Michael can introduce himself.
Hi, my name's Michael Pritchard, and I'm the Director of Education and Public Affairs at the RPS. What that means is I'm responsible for all of our public programmes. So it's not me doing it. I've got a great team of people that are looking after our exhibitions programme, our workshops and educational events, and our awards. And together we produce a whole range of activities, everything from practical hands-on workshop, although obviously they've been online for the last 15 months or so, right the way through to talks from photographers, people within the field that can help us all learn and share their own experiences. So it's a great place to be, and the RPS feels like it's in a really great place at the moment. We've come through lockdown, I think, really well. We've engaged with our members really well and the wider public, so we need to capitalise on that, and I'm really looking forward to that with the team to start delivering.
Great. No, it's good. It's just nice for people to know, who's covering what. And I think it can feel a little overwhelming, as a big organisation, but actually fundamentally it's made up of people who are very passionate and knowledgeable about photography, and their desire is to help spread that and connect people through it as well. So it isn't a faceless group, everybody. There's people behind it. So I think that's really important to know. Just before we get into, because I know you've recently released a new 5-year strategic plan, and that's full of loads of exciting things and interesting things. But just before we get into that, can we just talk about how the COVID situation happened and what you did as a team to kind of react and still connect with people? Because I know obviously the gallery and the place in Bristol where the RPS has was obviously shut like everywhere else. But what sorts of things did you manage to do, and how might those weave into you going forward and reaching wider audiences? Maybe, I don't know, Evan, if you want to pick up on that first.
Well, it'd probably be better if Michael answered that, since he was at the start of the pandemic, and I'll perhaps finish the story. Yeah.
True.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, obviously, I was here at the time, so what we had to do very, very quickly, like so many other arts and organisations and companies, was to transform what we did from the live situation in the building here, from our exhibitions and live events that we delivered in the building, to move them online. And the team here did an absolutely fantastic job. I mean, we hadn't done a lot, in fact, very little online content, so we had to learn very quickly. But actually, we moved our distinctions program from the live assessments in the building here online very quickly. Team got up to that and worked really hard to deliver that. So we started doing the distinctions program online, and that's been really successful. Again, the engagement with members who are just observing has been fantastic, and some really good response to that on the distinctions Facebook page. In terms of the exhibitions, that was probably the one area that was the more difficult one, because an exhibition is very much a personal experience within a gallery situation. But so the program here stopped within the building. It didn't stop us completely though, so we continued working with our science photographer competition, and what we did with that was to deliver that online earlier this year. So it has a fairly long lead time on that one. So that went online with our partners at the Science Museum in Manchester. So we delivered a virtual exhibition, and we made sure that we had some sort of virtual experiences from some of the past exhibitions that had happened in the building, so that even though people couldn't come into the gallery space, they could experience some of what had been in here during 2019. So that moved very quickly. And then the other area that reacted really quickly was our workshops and education team. So Liz and Emma in our workshops team moved all of their live content really quickly, really effectively into a virtual experience. We dropped a couple of workshops, the very practically based ones, but we also brought in some new ones as well, and we started delivering those online. And again, the response for that was amazing. We actually are reaching far more people attending RPS workshops than would have done had we been doing them live in the building here. So it's given us a lot of food for thought for the future and how we deliver some of our content, at which point I'm going to hand over to Evan then to pick up on the second part of that.
Yeah, I mean, when I arrived, all of that stuff was well in progress, and it seemed to me like it had always been like that, I suppose. One thing that's interested me for a long time is the role that arts as an audience and participant has on people's health and well-being. And throughout the pandemic, the evidence that I can see from the RPS's perspective is that photography has played a massive part in helping so many people to get through those difficult times, whether that's encouraging people to take walks in nature and to do all that kind of stuff where it's been possible, or to have projects that they've done at home, and to be able to share their photography with thousands of other people online, and to take part in education workshops, all that kind of stuff. Doing it remotely, I think has been massively important to a lot of people, and it's really amazing that the RPS has been able to help so many people to come through that. I've seen so many bits of feedback that have been really moving, just about what it has meant to people, and all of that stuff. It's really valuable for us to learn from that and to make sure we don't lose that. I mean, fingers crossed, things are getting easier now with the pandemic, but whatever happens, we're going to continue to deliver things online and to help people to continue their photography journeys themselves from wherever they are. We don't want people to have to come to our locations, whether that's here in Bristol or other locations, in order to continue their photography. That's a really important part of vision.
Without dwelling on the COVID thing too much, because it's been part of all of our lives for 12, 15 months. But if anyone is interested, I'd urge you to look at our Contemporary Group, because they've produced a wonderful series of pretty much weekly, I think, blogs, which actually talks about some of the projects that our membership have engaged with over the lockdown periods, obviously all socially distanced and within the regulations, I hasten to add. But also the other aspect to those blogs is so there's the project side, but the other side, I think, is how some of our membership have used photography as a way of helping their own mental well-being and mental health, as Evan's indicated. So there's the documentary side, but there's also that personal approach. And there's some really, really interesting stories there, and actually some incredibly emotional stories. So I would urge people to go and have a look at those and just be inspired in a way with some of the work that our members have done during what's been a really traumatic time for a lot of people. It's it's a fascinating set of blogs there.
Great. Tim, sorry.
I was going to say, do you think that, I know for COVID, with my own personal work, has changed things into a different way. But do you think photography in general, the way people look at photography in the virtual sense, and the kind of instead of that, I was trying to think of the words now, but the kind of in that kind of general way of looking at photography has changed, and it is changed into something, it's kind of evolved, shall we say, that's probably the word, it's kind of evolved a little bit into something else, and perhaps another genre has come about or something like that. Do you think that's happened? And who wants to answer?
There have been a lot of things changing over the past year. One of the things that I've heard people talk about very passionately with photography is its connection with mindfulness. That at a time when we've all got so much weighing on our mind, troubling us, there's something about being forced to focus all your attention through a lens into that infinitesimal moment of time when you release the shutter that makes you block everything else out of your life and focus on something really, really small. And that's such a powerful idea. And I don't think there's anything else in the world that forces you to have that discipline to concentrate really, really hard on something very, very small in time. And I think that we can all learn from that, whether that's as photographers or artists or humans, that we can use photography to evolve people. I think that's a really exciting idea. And the art that might emerge from that, who knows? I mean, I think we're seeing new things through the pandemic and all the time.
Yeah. I mean, over a number of years, that's it. The art changes to the societal situations as well, doesn't it? It's informed by that and informed by everything else around us. It's more than just, it's the end. It's the way of life to see that way, isn't it? But you mentioned about the mental health and wellbeing, and I know in the Photography for Everyone, the new strategic plan, that is an element that well done, little prompt there. It's not pre-rehearsed, I promise. That is something that comes up. But I think before we just get into some of the specifics, can you just outline why it was important for you to put this plan together now, and what the process is, about the transparency of who's involved in creating this and how long that takes, for example?
Yeah, shall I answer that, Michael? Absolutely. It's taken a long time to write this plan. Pretty much my whole time since coming to the RPS, and it was already started before that. It was very important that lots of people were involved in helping shape it, both within the organisation and beyond it. So lots of different volunteers, whether those were trustees or the different photographers that take part in lots of different parts of the organisation, as well as the whole staff team, and lots of workshops and facilitated conversations to really try and figure out what it is that the RPS is and does and what it should be. When I joined, one of the things that I found quite hard was just to try and get a sense of its shape, of who does what. And every time I thought I got the hang of it, I'd open a cupboard and find a whole new universe lurking behind it. So, if you ask people what the Royal Photographic Society is, often people will have heard of it, but often they will only know about one aspect of its work, if any. So a big part of this plan, I think, was to try and describe what the RPS currently does and what it would like to do in the future. So the sort of little strapline that we have at the front of it is that our mission is to bring inspiration, creativity, and connection through photography to people of all ages and backgrounds. And it's those three words, inspire, create, and connect, that sort of are the backbone of what we do. It's to bring inspirational photography that exists already to the widest possible number of people. It's to help people create their own photography through education programs and a whole suite of other things. And it's to help people connect socially through the process of sharing photography. And within each of those three areas, we've got a whole range of different programs. And to arrive at those programs has been a really interesting exercise, led mostly by our board of trustees, but with lots of other people feeding into it, so that hopefully now that we've got to this point, all the people within the RPS who have seen this so far can see themselves reflected in it. And that to me will be its mark of success, is if it's something that the whole of the people involved feel ownership of. And so far, the feedback's been really positive.
So with that sort of broader view of the general aims and purposes, and getting the team on board, it's always very helpful to have those signposts, because you kind of reference back is what we're doing relating to that. And I suppose that's always the yardstick for you. What does that maybe relate down to, sort of in the next level of that? You have the wider vision, then there's always the doing, which is the hard bit, which comes underneath. So are there some examples of things maybe that are new? Because obviously I know the distinctions and exhibitions and many other things that you've done for many years are being supported and carried on with, but are there any new things maybe in the education side, or in the way you guys reach out, that we would like to just highlight, that have maybe come up as a result of this strategic plan and consultations?
I think I can give you a brief answer. Let Evan collect his thoughts while I talk. I think in terms of the education, yeah, you're right. To some extent, it's reinforcing what we've been doing, but there are some specific initiatives, particularly around young people and children, that will be new for the RPS. But actually, for me, I think heading our education team and the exhibitions, then I think it's going to give us a real sense of direction that we perhaps haven't had, and it will allow us to be really clear what we're doing, and also try and make sure that we understand why we're doing it as well, and who those audiences are for. Because one of the other things that underpins the strategy is some themes around inclusion, environment and social responsibility, involving our members. And we haven't, for some of the activities that we've done in the past, we haven't always been that good about involving members, and we want to, because our members are the backbone of the organisation. There's so much skill and expertise. We'd be crazy not to be using the members. So we want to make sure members are much more involved than they may have been in some areas. Now, obviously, all of that needs to be underpinned with, make sure that we're financially stable as well. So, there's some new initiatives there that are going to need funding. But, I think with this document, with the enthusiasm for it, then I think we're in a really good place to deliver that and to secure some of that external funding. Ultimately, all of that should raise the profile of the RPS, but also the profile of our members, and what they're doing with photography and how they're doing with it. So, I think for me, there's areas around the education side, as I say, with youngsters, that I think would be really good for the RPS, because actually they're the next generation of photographers that we need to be inspiring now, showing them how they can create their own work and photographs, and bring them on that journey with us, so that in a few years some of those people might be going for their fellowship or their own distinctions, because they want to take their photography much further. So I think on that note, I'm going to hand over to Evan, who has collected his thoughts.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think I agree with the way Michael framed all of that, and certainly a lot of delivering this plan has to be underpinned with a business strategy, and that's the boring stuff, but it's really important, because the RPS needs to grow, and I think that part of that story is kind of the strapline. Actually, is photography for everyone is quite a strong statement. It sounds quite pithy, but we went through an awful lot of alternatives to that, and the reason that we chose to call it something so simple was because in the past, I think the RPS has had an image as being something that is for people who are prepared to call themselves a photographer. And I'm not sure that everyone who loves photography feels comfortable to label themselves as a photographer, whether that's right or not. And I think we want to make it clear that the RPS is for anyone who is excited about photography and wants to come on that journey, whether that's someone who loves taking pictures with a smartphone and wants to get better at it that way, or people who've got much more ambition about attaining a fellowship and really getting recognition as a top photographer, and all the stuff in between. So I think it's that sense of we are there for everyone that I'm most excited about, actually. But then there are lots of things that result from that slightly different approach. So within the first sort of pillar of Inspire, one thing that I'd pick out is the idea of us appointing a photographer laureate. which it's such a clear, simple idea, and I think we count our lucky stars that no one's thought of doing this sooner, because it's so exciting. And Kensington Palace are fully supportive of this, and I think it would be a really, really lovely thing to make happen. Someone who would be appointed probably for a 2-year period to capture images of the nation, and what a great opportunity that would be for someone. Within the creativity side of things, we have lots of new programs specifically for members of the RPS, but we're also going to do things for everybody out there. And we're going to launch a national photo day on which we will challenge everyone in the country to take a particular photograph in a particular way. And we'll produce lots of free resources and inspiring things to help people to do that, and then to share those photographs and see what people are capable of. So that would be my kind of 2 big things. And I'm also, like Michael, really thrilled about the idea of doing something for children, and producing a whole new sort of area of support to help children get excited in this amazing activity.
So is that to do with perhaps outreach projects with youth education, or how do you access that? Because I would imagine that feels a long way from something that could feel a little distant, as I outlined at the very beginning. Even in the very name, Royal Photographic Society carries great gravitas, yes, but I would imagine for some members of society or some certain age groups that might feel quite disconnected. So how do we cross that divide and bring those people sort of on board?
Well, I think a lot of RPS members have an awful lot to give. And one of the things that I guess has really impressed me since joining is just how much time and energy and expertise photographers around the country and around the world are prepared and keen to give. So although we currently don't have many children in membership, I think we have an awful lot of people in membership who have got skills and things that would be beneficial for new youth campaigns. So I think the RPS has an awful lot that it can do in this way, but we will definitely be acting in partnership, and we've got certain organisations identified already that will help us to identify and support children who want to take this pursuit seriously.
I think in a way, Sam, what's worth remembering is that actually a lot of other organisations, not dissimilar to the RPS, but outside of photography, actually have sort of youth group, youth branches. We did some work with the Royal Meteorological Society a few years ago, and they have a really active aspect of the Royal Meteorological Society, which they don't call that, but they give it a different name, so it's much more accessible. And they make the weather and how we understand weather exciting, interesting for children, and that's what we want to do through the Young Photographers Programme. And that will probably end up being a mix of making resources available for teachers or youth groups to use, but also it could be a particular category of membership of an RPS, which perhaps we wouldn't call the RPS. As you say, that it can be a bit off-putting for some people, and what we want to do is enthuse and excite those youngsters about photography, and it's just finding the right vehicle to do that. So there's different ways that we can do that, and as Evan says, some of it will certainly be done in partnership, because even we've got nearly 11,000 members, but even with that number of membership, then we're going to have to rely on others to help us deliver on that. But there's a lot that we can do as an organisation, because we've got those 11,000 members, we've got the expertise, and actually we've got the passion and enthusiasm to deliver that as well. So we can do a lot of that resource work and workshops and engaging with the children. And it's just working out exactly how we do that. So this has only just been launched, so it's still quite early days, but if anyone out there has some ideas or wants to get involved, then I'm not sure if there's a link down there or somewhere, but
can do, yeah.
There will be. We'd love to rely on others to help us deliver some of this plan.
Cool. Can I, Tim, actually, I want to bring you in there. Did you have a query?
No, I was just going to say, how, with the Young programme, does that kind of include like the student side of things as well, or is that something separate you've got? Because I know that from people I talk to, like students I work with as well, that it's the RPS probably hasn't been in the past their first point of call, shall we say? So is that something I take it that's something you're addressing, kind of with photography?
Well,
It sounds like you are.
yes, I mean, I think, Tim, in a way, for a lot of students, actually, I think in a way the RPS is on their radar, because we do a lot with UWE in Bristol and the Falmouth course. We've got a group of affiliated colleges and universities that do engage with us. Now, okay, that's a small proportion probably of the total number of courses, but we do a lot with the student community, and we particularly trying to get them to engage through the international photography exhibition that we do specifically to help them and to support them on their journey on the way to being a photographer. So coming back to your original question, then I think the Young Photographers Programme is probably looking a bit earlier than the student community, because we're engaging with that student community, and we'll continue to do so, because again, they're a group of people that are obviously clearly already interested in photography. They're studying it in some way, whether that's at a BA level, whether it's a postgrad level. So we're not going to lose that at all. So we continue the monthly student meetings that we have here, for example. The affiliation scheme absolutely will continue, and Liz, who's our education manager, has some really good connections and links through some of the groups that look after the tutors as well. So we're absolutely going to continue with that, and they remain an important community.
Good stuff. Can I just pick up on the mental health and wellbeing side of things for a moment, just because, and then we might talk a little bit about your international and funding side of things if we get time for that. And we really appreciate you two giving us this time, by the way, but hopefully we can get this out so lots of people can see and get up to date. The mental health and wellbeing thing is something that I've seen sort of developing over the last couple of years in terms of photographers being more aware of the actual practice of photography and what that might be bringing them. And actually some people are now involving that in workshops. Some people I've even seen using that as prescribed health benefit in certain parts of the world, which is really interesting. So what is it in particular, or what areas are you hoping to kind of touch on within this strategic plan? Is it to do with just shining a light on that and promoting the fact that photography can be good for your mental health and well-being? And or I suppose the flip side of that is there's probably photographers out there who might be struggling and maybe running into problems themselves. So, one can inform the art and one can be delivered because of the art. So where might you sit on those two certain sides of things?
Well, I think that those are two really interesting sides of it. I think there may be more sides of it, actually. Yeah. And there's something that perhaps Michael can talk more about. It's quite a specific practice around phototherapy, which is something I know very little about, but I know that the RPS has done a lot to encourage and celebrate in the past. What interests me is the impact that everyday photography has on the people who practice it. And we know very little really about how to measure that. There has been some research, but I think it'd be really interesting to explore that a lot more. We've got some people who are advising us at the moment. There's one lady who's living with autism who talks very passionately about how photography helps her to make sense of the world. And we're working with her to develop some new courses specifically for people with autism to develop a practice in photography. We've done some work. Well, Michael will probably say more, but for older people, and I think there's quite an interesting area there that we might explore around dementia and memory and all of that stuff. And there's all sorts of different aspects of one's day-to-day well-being that I think through the pandemic we've only really started to understand. And the thing that there's a photographer called Thomas Heaton, who you may know, and I was talking to him, and he said that of all of the things that get you out into nature, to get you out of your front door and to engage in the world, there's nothing better than giving someone a camera. And I think there's an awful lot in that statement that we could start to unpick a bit.
Yeah, I think this is probably another good example of where perhaps we haven't been good as an organisation in telling people that we're already doing some of this. So the plan takes it much further, and COVID in a way has made it much more relevant and important that we do more in this area. But when we first moved to Bristol a couple of years ago, we got involved with a local group that was using photography in the exhibition that we had at the time, Space Steps, which was looking at the moon landings. And we went out then to some of the groups of people with dementia, and they came into the gallery space and used the photography as a jumping off point to look at their own memories and recollections. And it was amazing actually to see how those people responded. And they actually then came back into the auditorium here, and a local student group then engaged with the people. They made a short film about it, and then we premiered that film with the subjects, with those people with dementia in the auditorium. And it was just a really wonderful experience to see their faces as they saw themselves on camera, and listen to them talking back to people. So we've done that. We actually have a course that's running quite regularly. So in fact, I've just seen a newsletter went out to our members recently, in fact a couple of days ago, so we've got a course on that called Photography and Happiness, for example. So we have got a few of these things happening, but the strategic plan takes it a lot further, and it's just become so much more relevant because of the last year.
Fab. Just chaps, I'm going to just last few minutes if we can. You mentioned about the membership there. I believe 11,000 was a number that was thrown out there. How I know you have people around the world as well, but is that fairly UK centric? And for someone who's watching who isn't a member, what's the process of signing up, and what, obviously we've outlined a lot of the things that the RPS does, but what does the member get, as it were, for signing up, as well as obviously access to all of these things? But can we just give that a little bit of an overview for a moment?
Yeah, thank you. Anyone who wants to check out any of this stuff, the website is rps.org. It's very easy to find. About 15% of our members are currently based overseas, so that leaves 85 here in the UK. And we're very interested in growing that overseas stuff as well. We've got very busy groups in Australia, in India, in Sri Lanka, lots of countries that you'd be quite surprised. I was certainly surprised to hear about. And it's wonderful to see all of the different perspectives all coming into one place from all these different photographers active all around the world. It's a great. There's an area of the website called Windows on the World, which just gives you that sort of cross section, and it's a great way to travel at the moment when we're unable to do so. But for any sort of aspiring photographer, anyone who loves going around with a camera in their hand and would like to get better at it, and I think this applies to art fairly well in general. Those three words that we mentioned earlier, I think are quite important for anyone's development. So to have access to a regular source of inspiration, so you can see what great things have been made in the past and are being made at the moment. To have creative support, so to have people who will actually help you with the skills you need, practical skills and guidance that's tailored to you, and to get involved in discussions about what good practices might be, the latest technologies, how to use things, all of that sort of guidance. That's the second thing. And the third thing is connection. And if you make great things, you want to share them. And that's how you can reflect on yourself and connect socially with other people through your art, through your photography. And it's those three pillars that people get from joining the RPS. They get regular material sent to them via the internet and through the post of really inspiring things that are happening, really unexpected things that will take you by surprise. You get access to all these great workshops and to our program of distinctions, which for many people, those are the ways that they know that they're making progress, is by undertaking these photographic assessments, which are judged by really kind of revered photographers who really know what they're doing, and you get really good feedback. And it means that you can sense that you are making progress. And the third thing is all the social groups that the RPS has available just to its members, whether those are localized ones to you or more sort of around special interests that you might have. So there's really active groups of people who are very specifically interested in landscape photography or portraiture or black and white, all these different aspects of photography. And those are great ways to spark new interests as well. So you do get quite a lot. What have I missed, Michael?
I think you've covered it pretty well, Evan.
Yeah.
I mean, what I'd say is that I joined the society when I was in my teens, and I'm still a member in my own right because I find that society gives me what I'm looking for. It gives me that sense of community with people that share my interests in photography, which are very specific to me. But I can talk to people that have those shared interests. And I love the exhibitions program. I love reading our journal, for example, which again, every other month comes to me, and I just get excited by what I see. And ultimately, I think all four of us here, we're all interested, we're all enthused by seeing good photography, and in a way, it doesn't matter whether it's the sort of photography we create or want to go off and outside and shoot. But we all get something from seeing that work and hearing how other photographers, whether it's a student, whether it's David Bailey or one of our honorary fellows, just talking about how they create and how they think about photography. So that's what I've got photography. I've been a member for an awfully long time, and I'm still a member, and I suspect I will be till I drop dead, basically. So if you need no other recommendation, then take that as a recommendation.
Good. It's good of you to keep paying your membership as well, even when you work there. Tim, just before I wrap up, any final thoughts from you before I bring us to a close here?
No, I just it all sounds fantastic. I've been infused to join, really, because I'm sorry to admit I'm not actually a member, but I probably will be, because after I've heard all this, I think there's always.
I'd also say it's fun as well. It's not just about learning and skill. It's also fun. I think we mustn't lose sight of the fact that photography should also be fun.
Yeah,
and have fun with it as well. I think
we can sort your membership out for you.
Yeah, it's a good job you told them at the end, Tim, rather than at the beginning. But just as a final thought, then, and thank everyone if you've been watching along this far. Hopefully, you've taken a lot from it. I think, and I've been very lucky to give a couple of talks for the RPS, and I know other people that have. And I know people that are members, and I have no hat in the ring though on this, but I would say that photography can be a thing where you're siloed a little bit, and this is a great opportunity to get input and community around what you're doing, which will actually more often than not really inspire you on, and actually it will remind you, in my opinion, that photography is probably a much broader church than you think it might be, and how it affects all the rest of your life and people around you as well. So on that note, hopefully that's a positive way to finish. Michael and Evan, we really appreciate your time, so thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
And do check out rps.org for all the latest info. And from us though, cheerio for now. We shall speak to you again very soon. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.